This person has at points abandoned you, or you felt abandoned by them, because there are moments in life when abandonment doesn't arrive loudly, it doesn't slam doors, it doesn't always come with goodbyes. Sometimes abandonment comes quietly, through unanswered messages, through distance that slowly grows through a person who is still present but no longer reachable. And what hurts the most is not always what they did. It's how alone you felt while they were doing it. This reading is for you. The one who stayed understanding, patient, forgiving, and hopeful, even when you felt emotionally left behind. Because the truth is deeper than you think. Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell icon, and select all because every video can change your mindset. You felt abandoned because they were fighting a war they never spoke about. This person didn't always leave physically. Often, they left emotionally. They disappeared into their own mind, into confusion, fear, guilt, and pressure. They didn't know how to explain and didn't believe you would understand without judging them. So instead of opening up, they shut down. Instead of saying, "I'm not okay," they created space. Instead of saying, "I need you," they convinced themselves they had to handle everything alone. And in doing so, they made you feel abandoned. Even though a part of them never stopped caring, they stepped back because being close to you triggered their insecurities. You reflect something powerful back to them. Your presence makes them feel deeply, and for someone who hasn't healed, deep feelings can be terrifying. You made them question themselves. You made them see their flaws. You made them realize what they could lose, and instead of rising to meet that depth, they ran from it, not because you were too much, but because they felt like they weren't enough. So when you needed reassurance, they withdrew. When you needed clarity, they avoided conversations. And when you needed consistency, they offered silence. That silence is what felt like abandonment. They abandoned you emotionally because they didn't know how to stay without losing themselves. Some people were never taught how to love without disappearing. They learned survival, not connection. They learned independence, not vulnerability. They learned strength, not emotional presence. So when things became real, when emotions demanded responsibility, they panicked. They didn't know how to stay and be okay. So they chose distance over honesty, avoidance over communication, disappearance over confrontation. And you were left wondering what you did wrong. When in reality, you were simply asking for what they didn't yet know how to give. You felt abandoned because you were giving more than they were capable of receiving. You loved openly, you cared deeply, you noticed shifts in energy, you felt changes before words were spoken. They, on the other hand, were still learning how to feel without shutting down. So while you were building emotional bridges, they were busy protecting emotional walls. You showed up consistently, they showed up inconsistently, not because they didn't care, but because caring scared them. And that imbalance created a wound that felt like abandonment. Their distance wasn't always a choice. Sometimes it was shame. There were moments when they knew they hurt you. They knew they disappointed you. They knew they failed to show up the way you deserved. And instead of fixing it, they felt ashamed. Ashamed people often withdraw. They avoid eye contact. They avoid conversations. They avoid the person they hurt. Not because they don't care, but because facing you means facing their own guilt. So they disappeared emotionally, hoping time would soften the damage. But time doesn't heal what honesty refuses to touch. You were abandoned because you represented a future they were afraid of. You weren't just a person to them. You were possibility, a deeper bond, a more serious path, a mirror showing what commitment would require. And when they weren't ready, instead of saying so, they pulled away, not because they didn't want you, but because they didn't trust themselves to be the person you deserved long term. So they created space, confusion, distance, and you were left standing alone in something you thought you were building together. Here is the truth you need to hear. Their abandonment was not a reflection of your worth. You were not too emotional. You were not too demanding. You were not asking for too much. You were asking the wrong person for something they had not yet learned how to give. And that does not make your needs wrong. It simply reveals the gap between your emotional readiness and theirs. Why this experience changed you. This connection taught you patience, perhaps too much. It taught you how to love without guarantees, how to stay loyal without certainty, how to wait without answers. But it also taught you something else, even if it hurt. It taught you that love should not feel like constant abandonment, that presence matters, that consistency is a form of respect, that silence can wound just as deeply as words. What comes next for you? You are not meant to keep chasing emotional availability. You are meant to be met. Whether this person returns with growth and honesty, or remains a lesson from your past, your heart is learning discernment. You are learning the difference between loving someone and losing yourself waiting for them. And that lesson, as painful as it was, is preparing you for something healthier, something steadier, something mutual. Final message for you. You were not abandoned because you were unlovable. You were abandoned because you love with depth. And they hadn't yet learned how to stand in that depth, without fear. And one day, with them or without them, you will be loved in a way that does not require you to wonder where you stand. If you found value in this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for your support.